If you follow the Ravens as closely as we do, you know this team never gives us a quiet week. And right now, everything revolves around Lamar Jackson and the mystery that has been surrounding his physical condition after weeks of speculation, small hints, and that uneasy feeling every time he took a hit. He finally opened up and gave fans a real look at what has been happening behind the scenes. And it comes at the worst possible time, because Baltimore is stepping into one of the most brutal stretches of the entire season, facing division rivals back-to-back. The kind of run that can decide who controls the AFC North and who gets swallowed up by the chaos of this conference. The AFC has been unpredictable from the very beginning. One week a team looks unstoppable. The next week they look like they forgot how to play football. For the Ravens, that means there is zero margin for error, especially inside the division. And this 3-game stretch, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals again, feels like a gauntlet. Add in the national spotlight of Thanksgiving night, the energy, the short week, the weird practice schedule, and suddenly you have a perfect storm forming around a team trying to prove that it belongs at the very top, but the spotlight keeps swinging back to Lamar. Everyone sees the same thing every Sunday. He gets hit, he gets up slowly, and the whole fan base holds its breath. Then he shows up on the injury report again. And again, and again. It started with the hamstring, and that alone kept him out for roughly a month. When he returned, it was the knee, then the ankle, and now it is the toe. It has been like watching a superstar try to outrun a storm that keeps circling back. And even though Lamar always insists he is good enough to play, anyone watching can see he is nowhere close to the fully unleashed version of himself that has shredded defenses for years. For the first time, he explained when the toe issue actually happened. According to him, it happened in the first quarter of that matchup against New York. Most fans assumed it was something late in the game or something that developed over time. But no, he was dealing with it almost the entire night. And even after saying he feels better in some areas, you could sense he was choosing his words carefully. He has never been the type to use injuries as excuses. But he also cannot hide the fact that something has been affecting the way he plays. You see it on the field. There are running lanes where Lamar used to explode and defenders would be left grabbing air. But now he hesitates, or when he does take off, he gets caught from behind, which is something we almost never saw earlier in his career. Plays where he normally extends the pocket with ease now look like a struggle for a quarterback whose entire game is built on that rare combination of speed, balance, agility, and explosive change of direction. Even a small tweak can change everything. And Lamar has not been dealing with just one tweak. It is more like a collection of small setbacks piling up week after week. And the hits do not help. Every Sunday there seems to be one moment where everyone watching says the same thing: please get up, Lamar. The offensive line has been inconsistent all year long, and that instability has put even more strain on him. You can almost trace the entire chain reaction back to that massive blow he took from Ed Oliver in the first week. A play that seemed harmless in real time, but may have been the first domino in this long list of issues. And that brings us to one of the biggest problems Baltimore cannot escape right now: the offensive line. It has been a revolving door of struggles. You see one guy win a rep, then another gets blown up instantly. You watch a route develop downfield, but Lamar is already halfway to the ground because the interior collapsed in a heartbeat. When your quarterback is already dealing with leg issues, the last thing you want is free rushers hitting him before he even finishes his drop. Some fans have suggested rotations to shake things up, and even the coaching staff floated the idea of mixing in young players to spark improvement. But this is not a defensive line where rotations happen naturally. Rotating offensive linemen is one of the rarest strategies in football, and yet Baltimore has done it before. They tried it when Ronnie Stanley needed rest coming back from his major injuries, but doing it now, not because of recovery, but because of performance issues, is a whole different story. It means you are admitting that nothing is stable, nothing is secure, and you are just trying to find the best combination to keep your quarterback upright. You can see how the injuries affect Lamar's mechanics too. The accuracy is not where it was earlier in the season, when he was dropping absolute darts all over the field. The anticipation throws, the layered throws, the deep shots, all of them look a bit off. And it lines up perfectly with what the numbers have been showing. Early in the season he was lighting defenses up, playing at an MVP pace. And then suddenly he dipped below 100 passing yards for 3 straight games. Something that has never happened in his career. completion percentage down, yards per pass down, touchdowns down, turnovers up. It is all connected to the physical limitations he has been fighting through, but none of this happens in a vacuum. The offensive line, the inconsistent run game, receivers dropping passes, protection breaking down, defenders hitting him low or high, it all plays a role. This offense has been stuck in neutral because every part of it seems to take turns having an off day. The defense has been the group carrying this team, keeping games close, shifting momentum when the offense stalls, making sure Lamar does not have to play hero every single week, and thank goodness for that. Because if the defense were average, Baltimore might be in a very different situation right now. Even the special teams have stepped up. The punt game has flipped fields when the offense stalled. The coverage units have held strong. And the kicking game has bailed the team out more than once, but as good as those phases have been, they cannot be the foundation you rely on deep into January when the postseason arrives. Weaknesses get exposed instantly. The teams that advance are the ones that can run the ball with physicality, protect the quarterback, and control the line of scrimmage. Right now, those are the exact areas where Baltimore keeps showing cracks. And that is where the concern comes from. Not panic, not doom, not hopelessness, but real concern, because everyone knows this team has the talent to play for a championship. But the path to get there requires an offense that can find its rhythm again. Lamar can still make every throw, even at less than 100%, but he needs time. He needs trust. He needs protection, and he needs at least some freedom to move without looking like every step sends a shock through his lower body. And as if all of that were not enough to worry about, the short week only adds another layer of complication for everyone involved. Recovering on a normal schedule is already tough, but when you compress everything into a handful of days, players barely have enough time to breathe before they are back on the field again. The practice sessions shrink, the walkthroughs become rushed, and the entire routine gets flipped upside down. For a team dealing with nagging injuries all over the roster, the timing could not be more inconvenient. That is why seeing certain key players return as full participants is one of the few encouraging signs heading into this stretch. But even those tiny victories come with the reminder that this roster has been through a grinder. Since week 1, it feels like forever ago. But when Baltimore briefly had an empty injury report earlier in the season, it was like the clouds parted and the sun came out for the first time in months. The team was healthy. The practice field looked lively. And everything pointed to a stretch of football where they would finally get to play with their full arsenal. That moment lasted barely 2 days before the injuries started rolling back in, and here we are. Now, heading into the heart of the season, dealing with multiple players limping, stretching, testing things in warm-ups, trying to push through soreness that never seems to go away. It paints a picture of a roster that has been giving every ounce of energy just to stay competitive. And that is where the outside analysis enters the conversation. The national spotlight has been lost, or focused on Lamar's dip in production, especially when you stack the numbers side by side. In the first handful of games, he was playing at a level that had the lead buzzing. He looked sharp, confident, efficient, calm under pressure, and the offense flowed through him effortlessly. Then the injuries started stacking up, and the numbers took a nosedive in a way that caught everyone's attention. When you spend nearly a decade building a reputation as one of the most explosive quarterbacks in the league, and suddenly you string together 3 games with under 100 passing yards and a completion percentage in the high 50s, people notice. But the deeper concerns are not about statistics. They are about what those numbers represent. They are about the way he moves when he steps up in the pocket, the way he tries to escape pressure and cannot quite generate that same burst he is known for, the way his base looks less stable when he plants his feet to throw. These are not issues that show up on the injury report in neat little categories. These are things you see in the details, the body language, the hesitation, the discomfort that flashes across his face after a hit he would normally shrug off without thinking twice. And the conversation naturally leads to the big question: can he get back to playing at that high level before the season reaches its most crucial weeks? People close to the game believe he can. They point out that injuries heal, timing returns, and elite players always find ways to adjust. But then there is the other side of the argument, the possibility that he simply might not have enough time to recover fully, especially if each week brings a new physical setback. When a quarterback's legs are compromised, everything else becomes more complicated. The throws require more upper body torque, the footwork loses its rhythm, The improvisational playmaking that defines Lamar's style becomes harder to tap into. And while veterans often benefit from rest days earlier in the week, quarterbacks walk a fine line with that strategy. On one hand, you want to take pressure off their legs, let the swelling go down, let them breathe a little. On the other hand, rhythm is everything at the quarterback position. Not practicing for a day can mean the timing with your receivers feels slightly off. The chemistry on double moves and deep routes can suffer. Little things like adjusting to new defensive looks in real time require reps that are hard to replicate without being on the field. So even rest becomes a balancing act between recovery and preparation. It is also impossible to ignore the emotional aspect of all this. Lamar is wired a certain way. Competitive, driven, unwilling to admit when he feels limited. He has always been the kind of player who fights through discomfort without complaining. But when the injuries start stacking up the way they have this season, even the toughest athletes reach a point where the body simply does not respond the way it used to. And Lamar has never been the type to sit out unless he absolutely cannot go. So if he is telling you he is fine, that probably means he is fighting through more pain than most people realize. The ripple effect on the offense has been obvious. You see it in the way the playbook shrinks some weeks. You see it in how often the team leans on short throws and quick decisions instead of deeper, developing concepts. You see it in the way the running backs get hit in the backfield because the blocking up front collapses too quickly. You see receivers trying to adjust their routes mid-play, but not getting enough time to break open before the pocket collapses. Everything starts to look rushed, cramped, and disjointed. That is why the offensive line remains such a massive storyline. You cannot expect your quarterback to regain confidence while he is under constant pressure. You cannot expect your run game to stabilize if defenders are getting through untouched, and you cannot expect to navigate a playoff race when your trenches are losing more snaps than they win. Football is a physical sport built from the inside out. When the foundation cracks, everything above it wobbles, and right now, Baltimore is trying to build skyscraper-level success on top of an offensive line that keeps shifting under their feet. But what makes this stretch so compelling is the contrast. You have an offense that looks like it is searching for answers week after week, and a defense that has stepped onto the field with the swagger of a unit that knows it can dominate anyone in front of it. The defense has kept games close, flipped momentum swings, forced turnovers, and bailed out the offense whenever it struggled to move the ball. If the season were judged solely on defensive performance, the Ravens would be one of the favorites to make a deep postseason run. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support keeps us bringing you the latest news on the Baltimore Ravens. And hey, drop your take in the comments below. We want to hear from the flock. Whispers swirled through the league late last night after a brief but explosive moment involving Bengals star receiver Ja'Marr Chase and the Baltimore Ravens locker room. According to people familiar with the situation, the wideout delivered a pointed provocation that traveled across hallways, phones, and social feeds with surprising speed. The comment itself was short, sharp, and unmistakably targeted. And it didn't take long for members of the Ravens to fire back with equal intensity. Witnesses nearby describe an almost electric shift in the atmosphere. Chase, known for his confidence and willingness to poke at rivals, allegedly dropped a line that questioned not only the Ravens' secondary but the swagger the unit prides itself on. A few Baltimore players reportedly heard about it within minutes and responded on the spot, making it clear they weren't letting anything slide, not from a divisional rival, and certainly not from a receiver of Chase's caliber. The reaction inside the Ravens locker room was said to be instant and loud enough for surrounding staff to notice. Several players, veterans and young defensive backs alike, expressed what one source called a collective promise to settle things on the field. One defender allegedly raised his voice, insisting they didn't need cameras or quotes to send their message back. Chase, for his part, appeared unfazed. Those close to the Bengals locker room hinted that he seemed almost amused by the buzz he had created, confident that his play would back up anything he said. Some teammates reportedly chuckled. Others shook their heads, knowing full well that nothing fuels Chase more than a little friction with a rival. Whether this exchange becomes just another rumor in the endless churn of league chatter or the spark that intensifies one of football's most heated rivalries remains to be seen. But if the murmurs echoing through both locker rooms are any indication, the tension already feels real enough to ignite something bigger. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay in the loop with exclusive news on our Baltimore Ravens, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what the flock thinks. Drop your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.